Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani meets with President Trump, a secret meeting suddenly off the books, and it happened at the White House. So what came out of the meeting? Well, we're just learning a little bit ago. Mamdani's spokesperson said this was what was discussed. Take a listen. This is cut number 3.
So the last time the president and the mayor met, the president asked him to come back with some big ideas on how we can build things together here in New York City. And that's what he did today. The mayor took him up on this offer and went to D.C. today to pitch him about a possible project in New York City that could deliver one of the biggest federal investments in housing of the past 50 years. We proposed a project with an estimated 12,000 units. As you noted, sir, our team did mock up front pages of the paper and gave those to President Trump in the Oval Office today. The president was very enthusiastic about this idea that we pitched him. Additionally, the mayor also brought up the detainment of the Columbia student who was detained this morning, and he asked directly President Trump that they be released. Additionally, he handed a list of 4 additional students who had been detained in New York to the chief of staff and to President Trump, asking them to consider dismissing their cases as well. Shortly after the mayor left the White House, he received a call from President Trump, who let him know the student who was detained this morning will be released. That's what we can share at the moment.
So who's punking who? Why is this happening? This sort of bromance going on with President Trump and the New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani. What does Zoran Mamdani get out of it? And what does President Trump get out of it? I believe, obviously, Mamdani clearly is trying to make sure he can get some federal funds. He knows that he needs it, especially at a time of economic crisis. He certainly does need it. So he's hoping that the money flows from the feds, and the only person who can really make sure of that is President Trump. But what does Trump get out of this meeting? Is he just sort of entertaining and saying, hey, listen, I can get along with everybody, even someone who's anti-Semitic, who is communist, who's a member of the Democratic Socialist Party, who doesn't agree with almost anything I agree with in terms of New York, but we can maybe find common ground when it comes to something like affordable housing. So it's an interesting dynamic, this dance between two men that almost could not be further apart. And Trump definitely loves New York. He definitely wants to see good things happen to New York. There's no doubt about it. But I really believe Zoran Mamdani clearly needs Donald Trump a lot more than Donald Trump needs what could be described as a gnat and Zoran Mamdani. So where's the win and who is the victor in all of this? Well, it was only a few days ago that President Trump, you guys, and we talked about this here on the Rita Cosby Show, President Trump during the State of the Union mentioned Zoran Mamdani and sort of the paradox, if you will, of how you need to have a couple IDs to shovel snow in New York, but to vote, no problem. Don't worry about Ds. Don't worry about any sort of identification. Come one, come all. Here is President Trump during the State of the Union referencing his favorite communist mayor, Zoran Mamdani.
And even the new communist mayor of New York City, I think he's a nice guy, actually. Speak to him a lot. Bad policy, but nice guy. Just said they want people to shovel snow. They got hit hard. Wants them to shovel snow, but if you apply for that job, you need to show 2 original forms of ID and a Social Security card. Yet they don't want identification for the greatest privilege of them all, voting in America. No, it's no good. No good. Both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly agree on the policy that we just enunciated. And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country-saving legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens. And the reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody not want voter ID? One reason, because they want to cheat. There's only one reason. They make up all excuses. They say it's racist. They come up with things you almost say, what imagination they have. They want to cheat. They have cheated. And their policy is so bad that the only way they can get elected is to cheat. And we're going to stop it. We have to stop it, John.
So who wins, who loses with this interesting and quite crazy relationship that's going on between Zoran Mamdani and Donald Trump? My bet is Trump totally understands what's going on. He's kind of playing Mamdani like a fiddle. We talked about this on Cats and Cosby. It's sort of the old man and the young kid saying, Dad, can I have some, allowance money? Could you help me a little bit with New York? And Trump is sort of throwing him a little bit of a bone. He also doesn't mind the idea of affordable housing. Maybe Zoran Mamdani will praise him for helping New York. But also Trump is fully aware that at some point he's going to say to Mamdani, okay, now maybe you could help me with ICE. Maybe you could help me round up these criminal migrants that are in New York and try to get rid of your crazy sanctuary city policies. So that's going to be an interesting moment when that happens. Not if that happens, but when that happens. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And we've got a little bit of breaking news here on the snowball attack on the NYPD. And this just in, they did arrest a guy. He wasn't some lowlife punk. Remember, Zoran Mamdani made it sound like it was just a bunch of kids having fun in a snowball fight. Well, a snowball fight means it's both ways. The NYPD says it wasn't both ways. And if you look at the video, they were being attacked by a mob. And apparently there were rocks in the snowballs. That's really dangerous. You hit somebody across the head like that. That is really, really dangerous. So lots of stuff to be concerned about. But they finally arrested a guy. And I was happy to see, oh, good, they arrested somebody, a 27-year-old guy who had charges of robbery tied to a couple subway incidents. It sounds like he was a professional, agitator, if you will. It's not some young kid just kind of having fun for the heck of it. And I was excited when I saw that they charged him. Now, the original charge against this guy for throwing the snowballs at the head, and 2 of the officers had to go to the hospital, guys. Originally, he was charged with assault, obstruction of governmental administration, and disorderly conduct for his involvement in the snowball free-for-all in Washington Square Park in New York. Everyone's been talking about this because it's just horrible to see these people attacking our great NYPD officers. And what happens? Guess what? Manhattan District Attorney's Office declines to pursue the cop assault charge during his arraignment, which took place tonight. So this guy is now just charged with downgraded harassment and obstruction of governmental administration as a second degree and a misdemeanor. In other words, a very low level charge. He's already out on the streets, released with supervised release, and just minor harassment. Like it was just a little annoying, harassing thing. No big deal. That is really a travesty. They should have thrown the book at this guy and these others because now they've signaled not really serious charges. I hate to say it. Why am I not surprised? You've got Zoran Mamdani, the mayor, And you've got Alvin Bragg, the district attorney, who loves the old revolving door of justice that puts, I believe, all of us in danger. Unless your last name's Trump. If your last name's Trump, he'll go after you incessantly. But if your last name isn't Trump, it's a free-for-all, it seems like, in New York City. So earlier today, here's Craig McCarthy. He is with the New York Post. He is the New York City Hall bureau chief. And here's what he had to say about the way that Zoran Mamdani has handled this whole matter, saying it's just a bunch of, he never wanted charges, period. Jessica Tisch, the NYPD commissioner, wanted it. Zoran Mamdani said, no, it's kids being kids.
Right, and then that was the thing we pointed out today. I mean, when he was arrested, he was 27 years old. Zoran Mamdani has played this down as being, just a snowball fight between kids, and doesn't believe criminal charges should be brought. And now this is the first person that's been arrested in connection with this attack.
And what happens to the first person arrested, guys? You can't make it up again. Charged with downgraded charges of a simple assault. I'm happy they even charged somebody. I didn't even think they'd even charge him. The way that Zoran Mamdani was talking, it doesn't sound like he wanted anybody charged. He had no problem, I guess, with these people throwing horrible snowballs with rocks and with ice right in the heads of our NYPD officers who were not throwing snowballs back. It was a one-way attack, not a snowball fight. And let's go back a little bit on memory lane, guys. Here is Zoran Mamdani just a few days ago, asked about the snowball fight, and listen to how he answers. They're asking, will you cancel? Will you try to put some sort of ban? Nope, no problem.
Would you consider banning these crowdsourcing events because they can and sometimes do get out of hand?
So I'm not going to be banning snowball fights or organized snowball fights. I've shared my thoughts with New Yorkers, and I continue to believe that what we are seeing in this response to this winter blizzard from the city workers as a whole, and that includes the hardworking men and women of the NYPD, is part of why the city is getting back on its feet, and I'm appreciative of that work.
Thank you. Sorry, Julie, we have to move on. Yeah. Annie, go ahead right here, and then we're going to go to Jeff.
Let's move on. No big deal. And then here's where he said, boys will be boys. They were just kind of having fun.
I can just tell you from the video I saw, it looked like kids at a snowball fight. Look, I've seen the videos of this snowball fight. I think that it was a snowball fight.
Not according to the people that were there, like the NYPD that were being pelted. And here is Vincent Valalong. He is with the Sergeants Benevolent Association, and he says those sergeants were attacked.
Listen, we have the greatest detectives in the world, bar none. I know they're busting their behinds in order to get the job and find everybody that they wind up identifying, and they will. You can't expect this to happen overnight. You need other people to work with you. I mean, it comes from facial recognition, which everybody has now, and they can dox the police left and right over it. So I have all the faith in the world that the NYPD will find the people who did this. It's a matter now of whether or not someone goes to bat for those people and says, "Hey, let's absolve them of any crimes because I didn't see anything that was going on." That sends the wrong message. You commit a crime, if you're a kid and you do something bad, your parents punish you, and you never do it again. You don't learn.
Yeah, it is clearly you get away with it. Don't worry. And now the only one arrested so far is a guy who gets charged with simple harassment, a misdemeanor. Have fun. No problem. Welcome to New York City under Mamdani and Alvin Bragg. That is a very, very dangerous combination. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Al in Yonkers real quick on line one. Al, your thoughts.
Yeah, hi, Rita. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, the mayor went down to the city, to Washington, because he needs money to implicate his pledges to his base, like affordable housing and all. And also his predecessor, Eric Adams, he really botched up the situation with the migrants coming to the city. So the city's in a financial hole. And Mamdani knows that he needs the president. The president doesn't need him.
Yeah, but let's also be honest, Al, and I know you understand this. Mamdani wants more money for illegal migrants. They're in this crisis right now because of policies like Mamdani. Yes, Eric Adams definitely at the beginning of his tenure was opening the door, but then when he started trying to close it, remember, that's when he suddenly was being investigated by the feds. And Mamdani wants to include this. I mean, at a time where they're in a fiscal crisis, how shocking is it that Mamdani is saying, we're in dire crisis, but I would actually like 1.2 billion with a B for migrants. Let's make sure we do the same mistake over and over and over again. So clearly he hasn't learned his lesson. And I agree with you. It's all the money thing. So what do you think Trump at one point is going to say to him, Al? What do you think is the back end? Because obviously Trump wants New York to be successful, but at some point Trump is going to say, if you really want this deal, which is going to make you look good, it's going to make New York look good, you really need to do X and X. What's the X and X?
Yeah, I just think President Trump, because he, has his roots in New York. He grew up in Queens, and, he's the art of the deal. And I think he just wants to have a good relationship with the mayor. But
I do too. But Al, you got to be kidding me. There's going to be some deal. I mean, he is the art of the deal.
Definitely.
He's going to, and he knows Mamdani needs him more than vice versa, by far.
For sure. I mean, we can go even back. The city's not at the brink like it was back in the 70s, like Abe Beam, when he had to go to Gerald Ford. You remember the city dropped dead? The New York City almost went bankrupt.
Right. And by the way, that was the thing. I don't know if you saw today also, Mamdani put out the sort of message, I think it was on his Twitter, on his X, showing the Trump looking about affordable housing, trying to help New York, versus sort of the Gerald Ford, New York City drop dead. So all of that is an interesting moment. And yeah, I do believe, look, President Trump loves New York. He loves America. But also there will be some deal at the end of the line. And we'll see if Mamdani, I just feel like Mamdani is an ideologue. I don't know if he's as much of a traitor as Trump is. Trump is a realist. I believe Mamdani's an ideologue. 1-800-848-9222. Everybody, we're going to continue with your calls on The Rita Cosby Show right after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show, another interesting meeting with Mamdani and Trump. This one wasn't even on the schedules. And the next thing you know, some, quote, secret meeting was taking place. Let's go to Joaquin in Pennsylvania. What do you make of this, Joaquin?
Good evening, Rita. I got to hand it to you. You're getting feistier all the time. I love that line that you had before, Mamdani, and as a gnat.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
But you know what? It is. When you look at it, and in fact, do me a favor, Joaquin, hold on, because we got a hard break, but I do want to talk with you because it's an interesting moment because he's like a little gnat that kind of keeps coming and saying, hey, I'd like to meet with you. And I almost feel like knowing Trump, he's sitting back and kind of going, okay, little, what is it, crocodile? Come on in. You come on in. We'll see what happens.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Stony Brook, New York, where it looked like a normal day in the life of the Southampton Village building maintenance supervisor, Robert Hand. He was working on the heating system in the mechanical room of the police department when he decided to use the bathroom in the men's locker room. It just so happened at that time there was a shift change. And when the officers suddenly came in, they saw Hand on the floor. He was laying there totally unconscious from a massive heart attack. And in fact, he had just celebrated his 67th birthday just days earlier. He said, gosh, if I had passed out in the mechanical room, I would be dead now. They never would have found me. Luckily, where it happened, it was meant to be at that time. Luckily, the officers came in. They responded quickly. They tried to resuscitate him, luckily to avail. And luckily, were able to transport him very quickly to a hospital. The police chief said that Hand and others want to recognize the officers for saving his life. He also said, I just want to say, I cannot believe what happened. It is too much. They gave me a second life. How beautiful. And bravo to the great men and women in blue who save this man and do that every single day. Well, we have a news alert coming in about that boat. Remember, it was a Florida boat, and it looked like it was in some sort of shootout off the coast of Cuba.
Breaking news.
And we are just learning tonight that there was an American among those killed on that speedboat in Cuban waters. The White House confirming that there were American citizens on board that boat. Apparently, it was a stolen speedboat that entered Cuban waters. 4 people were killed by Cuba's Coast Guard. And Cuba says that the occupants opened fire on the Cuban military. That's the Cuban version. We don't know if that's true. But apparently, of the 4 killed, at least one of them is an American, according to the White House. And also 6 people that were aboard the boat were injured and have been taken into detention. You can imagine it's not a pretty sight to be detained there in Cuba. And apparently one of those detained, at least one, is also an American. So we'll have to keep posted on what happens and try to find out what really happened. The Cuban government saying that they are terrorists, that were trying to do something to infiltrate Cuba. It's not clear if that's the case. But now we know that at least 2 Americans were involved. Meantime, we're also talking about Zoran Mamdani meeting with President Trump, a secret meeting that we found out about last minute. We're going to go to Joaquin in a moment. But first, here's a little bit more from Craig McCarthy of the New York Post, who said that President Trump seemed happy to meet again with Mamdani.
You know, Zoran is doing the similar things. He snuck off to D.C., landed just before 10 a.m., headed over to the White House for a meeting at 1 p.m., not on either of their public schedules. And, you know, how the Mamdani team is framing it is he was pitching the president on this ambitious 12,000-unit housing project. They're saying the president is ecstatic about it. He's enthusiastic. The White House, though?
How much money is that, Craig?
Well, that's the problem, John. We have no details at this point. We know the number of units. We don't know what borough. We don't know how long.
Well, Tony Carbonetti's here. How much is 12,000 units, Tony?
$5 billion. It's roughly
$5 billion. Well, we said that on the show.
$5 billion. And it is something we said on the show that it looks like some sort of housing deal. And listen, President Trump is excited to help New York. That's the bottom line. I give him credit for listening. Here is President Trump. This was when they had their first bromance meeting soon after Mamdani got elected. And President Trump said, yeah, I'm happy to meet with him. If it's good for my home of New York, it's good.
Threatening to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out. And I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, you know, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length.
And I'm not sure if Mamdani wants to get rid of horrible people. I don't see him rushing to get rid of criminal migrants, especially violent criminal migrants. He seems to want to fight ICE tooth and nail. But I give President Trump good grades for trying. And also, Zoran Mamdani, as we just talked about, even on the snowball fight, it's a pretty easy thing. You see the video, you see these people beating up on officers with snowballs that have rocks in them and ice in them. That's a pretty serious hit. They had to go to the hospital, a couple of them. If you hit something like that in your head, that's pretty serious stuff, you guys. And so the officers said, we were attacked. There's no fight. This wasn't a fun fight. And yet Zoran Mamdani is diminishing it. It seems like he's diminishing police every turn. He's getting rid of the strategic response group. He wants to send social workers. I mean, I'm not sure how much he wants to keep New York safe, but I'm glad President Trump wants the best for New York and will try to do what he can. Maybe he can negotiate. I believe there is some deal that's going to come up, whether it came up now or whether it comes right before the dotted line is signed. Oh, one more thing, little grasshopper. One more thing. We need to make sure that you fully cooperate with ICE, that you hand over everybody who is in detention and there's a warrant for you. Hand them over right away to ICE. You don't make them have to chase them down the street. You don't have these activists blocking ICE facilities in New York. I won't tolerate it. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe there's the 11th hour. Hey, I forgot to mention there's a contingency with this money we're about to give you. But here is President Trump. And I give him credit that he went in and he's meeting with the guy. There are a lot of people who say, I wouldn't even meet with this guy. But President Trump said, I'm going to meet with this guy. And I really want to help the greatest city in the world, New York City, my home. Remember, he's from Queens. So here's a little bit more of Trump. This is when they had their first meeting in the Oval Office, that very famous one where the two of them were standing side by side.
We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there, the rent coming down. I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing. Yeah. That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
I mean, that's a powerful statement. And obviously, Mamdani probably wanted to meet with him again. And Trump said, sure. So I give him a lot of credit for making the reach. But again, it's the grasshopper and the big kahuna. That's how I see the two of them. And let's go back to Joaquin on line 3. Joaquin, it's grasshopper or gnat versus the big kahuna, right?
Yeah, that's great. Rita, you want to hear real irony and coincidence? That story that you just told about Stony Brook?
Yes.
I went to school with Robert Hand.
Oh, my goodness. That was our Back the Blue. Wow.
Yes, I heard the name. I was like, I know that guy. I went to school with him.
Did you know he obviously just had a heart attack, and it happened in the men's room? Luckily, it was, again, a shift change in the men's locker room in the bathroom there, and the officers happened to see him.
That's incredible.
Yeah, the good news is he's okay. He has, and in fact, he even says, "Boy, I have like an angel watching over me." That it was meant to be because he just happened to take a bathroom break. I mean, if he had been in, this mechanical room, which is kind of a remote area, it sounds like nobody would have found him. But because it was a shift change and it was in sort of the main locker room bathroom, everybody was kind of coming in and out. I mean, wow, that is incredible, Joaquin. What's your reaction to that? Wow.
I'm glad to hear he's okay.
Me too.
I didn't know him real well. He was actually a friend of my best friends, but I did know him, and not too many guys named Robert Hand. We called him Moose. Yeah, he's a nice guy, real nice guy.
Well, the Moose is on the loose. That's the good news. Yeah. The Moose is doing great. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. So, if I could just indulge one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really was thinking I'd like to nominate Teddy as WABC's Caller of the Year. I mean, he's such an amicable, useful idiot for the left, but he's so lovable.
That's why I call him Fuzzy Teddy. He hasn't called yet tonight. Maybe he's stewing. Let's see. Let's see what. There's got to be something. Trump did something wrong today. Maybe Teddy has a hangnail or something, and he's going to blame it on Trump. I'm waiting, Teddy. Go ahead, Joaquin.
But you know, the thing of it is of course, Mamdani is trying to do this to take care of the illegal immigrants in New York, and I'm pretty sure that President Trump is playing them like a violin, because I don't think that Trump is going to give him billions of dollars to support illegal immigrants. And this whole thing with the snowball fight, this is just so ridiculous. The way he sits there and says, a snowball fight indicates a fun activity. This is an assault, and that's the whole reason why. Unfortunately, there's no retention in New York. Who wants to be a cop there? My brother was a cop in New York a long time ago.
Oh wow! How long was he a cop for, Joaquin?
Well, he was in New York Transit for about 2 years, but then he moved on to Nassau County, but then he moved on to other things.
Right, but bravo for him. That's great, really great. Yeah. But you know what? As you hear this, though, Joaquin, you're right, because our police are completely under assault. They're under assault by the snowballs, and they're also under assault when you have a mayor that clearly is not backing them. And it's not a trick question. I mean, Jessica Tisch is the one who came out, and right away she said these are criminal activities. And the worst part is, Joaquin, and I feel like you and I were talking about this prior to the election, and, we were sounding the alarm and saying, you got a guy like Mamdani, then you couple it with an Alvin Bragg who's soft on crime. That really is a formula for disaster. I mean, in this case, it clearly is assault. It's, luckily the officers, I hope, are going to be okay. I know they went to the hospital for some serious injuries. I mean, if you get hit in the eye and in the head, that could be very serious. And so to me, that's a huge concern that even on this case, they are still, you got a mayor who was reluctant, it sounded like, to charge anyone. Like you said, it was like boys be boys, no big deal, ha, ha, ha. And then now it goes to Alvin Bragg, who has the same philosophy, and he reduces even the one that they get arrested. And the guy is not some little, a kid with, playing tiddlywinks. This is a guy who had some priors attached to the subway just recently, and he's 27 years old. So, I mean, I find all of this really disheartening. Just like you said, it's bad enough that they weren't in a rush to arrest anybody. Then when they finally do get somebody and they're on videotape, it's pretty easy to get them. And they still reduce it to a slight misdemeanor when they could have thrown the book at this guy and really sent a message for a lot of reasons, Joaquin. Sent a message to people that you do not mess with our men and women in blue. That is definitely dangerous and definitely completely crossing the line. And it also sends a message to our men and women in blue that we have your backs, that if someone dares to lay a hand on you, what it does now, it scares me because I feel like it's going to embolden these people. That's not good.
Exactly. But again, it's the morale for the police department, because what are these poor people going to do? But, and this really also, there's one more thing that I heard on Katz and Cosby that's so damn disgusting about what's going on in this country. A retired pilot going to China to train their pilots, and we have retired pilots from our allies doing this. This cannot be allowed. I mean, and hearing that, I got to say, I don't trust any of our allies anymore. At least the ones in the EU, barring Poland, and those Eastern European countries. But the rest of them, they're basically surrendering. And to hear that their pilots and Australia's pilots and one of our pilots is going to China to train their pilots.
Yeah, it's really disconcerting.
I don't understand the mindset.
By the way, you couple that with the biolabs that they've been discovering, at least 2 of them in the United States. That is concerning too. I mean, you think about that. That is a very, very dangerous combination. And I also worry, Joaquin, because China, there have been reports that they are helping right now with some technology for these supersonic ballistic missiles that could potentially reach U.S. ships, that they are in talks with Iran to do some big deal because Iran knows the wall's closing in. So anybody who thinks that China is not a threat is really ridiculous and completely out of line. Joaquin, thank you very much. And really great. I love how you talked about Robert Hand, your old classmate, And I'm glad that he is okay. And I'm glad that our Back the Blue was especially poignant and personal for you tonight, my friend. That's great. And everybody, we're going to continue after the break here on The Rita Cosby Show, 1-800-848-9222. And we'll be right back.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
So what message does it send that they finally get a guy who is attacking the NYPD with snowballs, with rocks and other things, and they let him go? They downgrade the charges and say, have a nice day. Thank you so much. It's so wonderful dealing with you. Is that any way to treat our great men and women in blue? Let's go to Liz in Florida, 1-800-848-9222. Go ahead, Liz.
Hello, Rita. Rita, a snowball fight defined is a fight between two parties, and only one party was involved. That was not a snowball fight, and it's usually with children. But can you imagine if the NYPD took those snowballs and started fighting them and started throwing it at them? Okay, the attackers, what would Mamdani say at that point?
Yeah, and you know what I brought up? What if it was like outside of, who's to say? What if the NYPD was throwing it at, like in this case, it looks like African-American. There were white officers. Would they be deemed racist? What if it was a bunch of Muslims? Would they be deemed racist there too as well? I mean, think about that, Liz. These poor officers looked helpless. Can you imagine they were just getting walked and pelted and couldn't do anything? It was almost like they were afraid to do something, and I don't blame them. Under Mamdani's New York, cops don't feel they don't feel emboldened to do their job, Liz.
I wouldn't either. I don't think they feel safe. They're trying to do their job and they can't do their job, and they're being attacked. You know, snowballs can really, and they did hurt. They ended up in the hospital. So, you know, Mamdani has an agenda, and he's not going to go anywhere but straight towards what he wants to do.
Yeah, and you are absolutely right. And that's the sad thing. Although, when I go back again to President Trump, it's sort of the grasshopper, and I'm trying to remember the other analogy, but it's the, let's just say the giraffe and the grasshopper, because definitely President Trump is the one holding all the cards. And he certainly is holding all the financial cards, and that has a lot of say. Liz, great points, and I love how you love our men and women in law enforcement. They deserve and need our support. Let's go to Eduardo, also in Florida, in Tampa. Go ahead, Eduardo, on line one. Eduardo, go ahead there. Eduardo, we can't hear you, so you got to call back again. Let's go to Sandra in the meantime on line two. Sandra, you're here on the Rita Cosby Show. Go ahead, Sandra.
Well, Rita, I'm happy that Mamdani and Trump are getting together because Trump knows how to figure out people and the art of the deal. He's gonna make things work with this man. This is my guess. But I called for a different reason. You know, I know you love Savannah Guthrie, and we're all concerned about her mother, and lately it's been a little quiet.
Yep.
Today, I read an article in the Post about a mother who resurfaced after 24 years. Now, it's a totally different situation. This was a dysfunctional family, and the mother took off. She went shopping one afternoon, never returned, and she's back. So I'm saying there's hope, Rita. You know, you never know.
That's a great point. You're right. And you know what I also think of, Sandra, is the Elizabeth Smart case. She was gone for quite some time, and she was snatched from her home, very sort of similar circumstances in terms of what it looks like, the kidnapping and snatching. She came back alive. So I still pray.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.